2, 3. Prova.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. At the end of 2016, the Center of Excellence for Stability Police Unit, the NATO Stability Police Center of Excellence, and the Eurogenfor Permanent Headquarters signed a technical arrangement regarding cooperation in the area of stability policing. This partnership was designed to create an environment to share and implement the thoughts, ideas, and best practices of stability policing, creating the International Stability Policing Hub. The three partners are here today to share their experiences, studies, lessons learned, and ongoing activities on stability policing. Our goal now is to consolidate our collective expertise in order to implement that technical arrangement. Now, I would like to introduce you the Eurogenfor Permanent Headquarters Commander, Colonel Paolo Gonçalves. Sir, please, the floor is yours.
With your permission, sir. Thank you. So, Your Excellency, dear guests, dear colleagues and friends, I'm delighted to be here today and to have the opportunity to address so distinguished audience. Firstly, on behalf of the three entities, I would like to express our gratitude for joining us and for giving us the privilege of your presence at such an important event for the Stability Policing Hub. Your attendance means a lot to us, and we really appreciate your time and effort to be here on one more edition of the Stability Policing Day. The Stability Policing Day aims at consolidating the pathway to implement the technical arrangement signed between the Center of Excellence for Stability Policing Units, the European Gendarmerie Force Permanent Headquarters, and the NATO Stability Policing Center of Excellence regarding the cooperation in the field of stability policing in order to enhance the NATO barracks as international stability policing hub. So the Stability Policing Day is an important occasion to highlight the crucial role played by stability police personnel in promoting peace and security. It provides an opportunity to recognize our contribution, raise awareness about the main challenges, and inspire us to continue working towards a safer and more secure environment for all. This year, we propose ourselves to study and brainstorming on three different topics, all of them related with stability policing and based in some areas of our expertise. The topics are human security from NATO perspective, stability policing role on the field perspective from the Kosovo area, stability policing role from a training perspective focused on Somalia. A dedicated working group has been working tirelessly on each topic since this morning. These joint working groups, comprising officers from the Stability Policing Hub entities, were tasked to brainstorm on each topic and come up with some conclusions on the matter. I avail the opportunity to thank all the members of the joint working groups for their hard work and dedication. I'm pleased to inform you that they have made significant progress, and later on we will have the opportunity to hear from them about their main outcomes. I would like to take a moment to emphasize the importance of joint effort in discussing and brainstorming ideas on specific topics. Open discussions and brainstorming sessions are powerful tools to fostering inclusivity and creating a sense of shared ownership within an organization. When everyone's ideas and perspectives are valued and respected, it encourages active participation and collaboration. In the context of stability policing, open discussions allow the exchange of diverse points of view, experience, and expertise. These can lead to a more comprehensive understanding of the challenges and potential solutions in the field. By actively engaging in dialogue, team members can challenge assumptions, offer innovative ideas, and identify new approaches to address complex issues related with stability policing. This approach will certainly lead us to a sense of shared ownership, which can in turn motivate us all to work harder and achieve greater results in the stability policing domain. Your Excellency, dear guests, dear colleagues and friends, once again I want to express our heartfelt gratitude for your presence here today. I'm confident that this event will be an opportunity for all of us to come together and learn more from each other. And I really hope we will leave from this auditorium today with a renewed sense of purpose and dedication to serving the people and the communities, which is the true meaning of the stability policing concept. Thank you to you all.
Now, I'd like to read you a message from the Prefect of Vicenza, Mr. Salvatore Caccamo. Major General Barbano, Colonel De Magistris, Colonel Gonsalves, I greatly appreciate the kind invitation to participate in the Stability Policing Day, which will take place on Tuesday, 16 May, at this Center of Excellence. I sincerely would have liked to be present to greet all the authoritative participants in the event. However, concurrent work commitments which have arisen in the meantime do not allow me, with deep regret, to attend this significant event. Anyway, this unforeseen setback does not prevent me from sending my personal thanks. I would also like to address to all the components of the COESPO, the permanent HQ of Eurogenfor and NATO SPCOE, my deepest congratulations for having organized this symposium. In fact, this moment of thoughtful debate in today's scenario of geopolitical tensions takes on a particular value by increasing our united mission that has so far characterized our common work in guaranteeing the application of solutions for a sustainable peace. I therefore ask you to extend my warmest greetings to all the civilian and military authorities that took part. I would also like to greet the authoritative international subject matter experts from the organizations previously mentioned, who through their dedicated work and professional studies will contribute to enriching the doctrinal heritage and operational capacity of the Center of Excellence, taking advantage of this significant event. I wish you good work, and I offer my warmest congratulations. Signed, Salvatore Caccamo, Prefect of Vicenza. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'd like to introduce you the Carabinieri Deputy Commanding General, Lieutenant General Maurizio De Talmo Mezzavilla. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, first of all, let me say a real heartily thank you to the Major General Barbano and also to the Commander of GF, my friend Gonsalves, for this warm welcome in this Center of Excellence for Stability Policy Unit, which is a unique structure at national level, and even though at the international level we have lots of competitors, but Italy and with the Carabinieri were the first to have this, to promote this initiative together with the US. That we thank you very much for what you do. Thank you very much for being here today. And I think this is a great day for melting the three capabilities that are deployed in this center. So thank you to the organizers for this unique opportunity to discuss in this complex international scenario about stability policing center of gravity. The international community as a whole is today solicited to an holistic approach, calling for maximum cohesion in order to assess a suitable reaction to all the threats posed by ruthless actors. Moreover, in this context, stability policing comes into play. It's defined by NATO as a set of police-related activities intended to reinforce or temporarily replace indigenous police in order to contribute to the restoration and or upholding of the public order and security, rule of law, and the protection of human rights. Stability police is one of the key functions of the Atlantic Alliance operation. It's an internationalization, sorry for my worse English. It's an internationalization of the concept of Carabinieri at the service of the communities. It's a modern crisis management tool for the governance of an unstable country since the inception of an operation. The Alliance, acknowledging the security gap already mentioned in the Brahimi report in 2000, recognized the need to develop a police capability in the military, also equipping itself with appropriate doctrinal instruments. As a matter of fact, in 2016, the Allied Joint Publication 3.22, Allied Joint Doctrine for Stability Policing, whose custodianship has been given by NATO to the Carabinieri, was promulgated. Consequently, at the Warsaw Summit in 2016, the heads of state and government highlighted the need to project stability through an all-rounded approach that also included a stability policing dimension. Stability policing has its roots in the 90s, when the failure of the UN mission in Somalia and the difficulties encountered by the peacekeepers in Bosnia and Herzegovina, culminating in the dramatic events of Srebrenica in 1995, exposed the weakness of a purely war-fighting approach, unable to fill the need for security of local populations. In particular, stability policing is the evolution of the concept launched in 1998 by NATO in the Balkans, namely in Bosnia and in Kosovo, and later on also consolidating Albania and Iraq through the establishment of the multinational specialized unit regiment led by the Carabinieri, responsible for replacing and or reinforcing local police forces. In this regard, I quote Brigadier General Mike Jackson, British Armies, the first K4 commander, who defined the multinational specialized unit operators as people with the mindset of a policeman in the body of a soldier. Currently, such a regiment is still deployed in Kosovo and plays a pivotal role in the relationships among NATO, Kosovars, and Serbs. From a doctrinal standpoint, stability policing differs from military police, tasked with ensuring the general conditions of order and security within the military force, security force assistance, which turns its attention to the training of local armed forces, as does not include the possibility to their replacement. Stability policing is a particularly versatile and multifaceted tool that integrates and completes the military approach based solely on combat action, expanding its scope and allowing the fully implementing NATO's comprehensive approach. Stability policing activities can be conducted along the complete spectrum of the conflict within the framework of both crisis response operations and Article 5 NATO Treaty, which is the collective defense. The Carabinieri valued so much stability policing, so establishing an international hub here in Vicenza, where we are now, where three entities are coexisting. The Center of Excellence for the Stability Police, COESPU, mainly oriented towards the UN, the NATO Stability Policing Center of Excellence, and the permanent headquarters of the European Gendarmerie Force, Eurogen 4, primarily dedicated to the EU management operations. The Carabinieri are committed to promoting the adoption of a NATO strategic concept on stability policing, thus creating a framework for the specific function and acknowledging at the highest allied level the absolute need for allied countries to train, prepare and equip units capable of carrying out stability policing missions in NATO operations. This vision at a strategic level, in my opinion, is more urgent now than ever in the context of such an unstable international scenario. The approval process of the concept is still ongoing and the document is currently being examined by the international military staff. Stability policing is a tool for everyone, for the benefit of the commander of the forces, of the nations that will host the stabilization intervention, for the benefit of the same forces deployed in the area of operation. It's necessary, however, to clarify that this function is dedicated and addressed to the civilian population, referring this function to the activities carried out exclusively by the military police, which have a completely different mission that would generate confusion at the operational level. Italy has always promoted this concept and welcomes all the forces available to perform this function skillfully and effectively into the stability policing community. At this point of the discussion within NATO, those who oppose this vision seem frankly still clinging to prehistoric positions without taking into account the lessons learned from multiple conflicts in which we have been involved alongside allied countries and partners, first of all in Afghanistan. A few more words with a reference to the role played by some niche Carabinieri units that can be embedded in stability policing assets deployable in area of operations. I'm referring to the capability that the Task Force United for Heritage, the so-called Blue Helmets, and the units for the protection of the environmental and agroforestry heritage are able to display in operations, in compliance with the UN and NATO concept of protection of civilians and the obligations imposed by the Geneva Conventions on the ban of permanent damage to the natural environment. In addition, the possibility of intercepting illicit money flow resulting from crimes connected to trafficking in cultural property seized by the stability policing units and handed back to the host nations also contributes to increase the perception of the relevance of NATO's role in the wider context of global stabilization. Likewise, putting an end to the attacks on the cultural heritage of a country and to the violence against the collective memory and community identity consolidate the results of military operations. The growing importance of environmental protection-related issues has been fully acknowledged by the Carabinieri, who, in the coordination with the US State Department, established a dedicated chair in environmental protection both at the COESPO and in Sabaudia, a city very close to Rome. The Sabaudia project is being developed with the aim of creating an international center of excellence for the environment and care of territory, since the exploitation of the environment is a potential risk for financing criminal and terrorist organizations. As a closing remark, I would like to quote a sentence of the philosopher Aristotle. It is not enough to win a war, it's more important to organize the peace. And with these words, wise words, I thank you for your attention and the best wishes to you all, especially to Major General Barbano, who in the next future, very close future, is going to have a very important role within EU in the Balkans. Best wishes to you.
Now, the Director of the Center of Excellence of Stability Police Unit, Major General Giovanni Pietro Barbano, will give a present to remember this significant day to the Carabinieri Deputy Commanding General.
Thank you for your lecture here, very inspiring. Thank you for your support, continuous and unwavering support always provided. According to the request to the European Gendarmerie Force and the NATO Stability Policing Process, that to the development of the stability policing concept since early development of this and early experiences in this field. And as well, let me congratulate with you for the very next step of your career and your personal life that will happen in this
The one who doesn't know me, I'm going to become very, very soon a VIP, vecchio in pensione. So that's why, I say this. That's the next step. Becoming a VIP, vecchio in pensione.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please stand up and prepare for a group picture of this significant day in the parade ground. Our Press and Public Information Officer will give you guidance and information. Ladies and gentlemen, please let me introduce you the Deputy Director of the Center of Excellence for Stability Police Unit, Colonel William Daniel. Sir, please, the floor is yours.
So thank you. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the afternoon session. General, thank you for your remarks, and thank you for attending and making today's ceremony that much more special. You've been a great friend to COSP over the years, and we're glad to have you here. Thank you. So those of you who weren't here for today's morning session, I'll give you a brief snippet of what we did. So we gave briefings on security situations that are relevant to stability policing. And we broke out into working groups and we discussed these difficult topics. And what we have today is we'll give a recap of what was discussed and some recommendations for implementation of some stability policing efforts in these important areas. So I've got all kinds of manner of ways to communicate with those that are online streaming this. They can ask questions. I've got an iPad here. I've got a radio. All kinds of ways to figure out what people want to know. So without further ado, I think we will hear from the NATO Stability Policing Center of Excellence, Lieutenant Colonel Alessandro Criscitello. Criscitello.
No,
Sir?
no, no,
No?
no, no, it's not him.
It's not him?
No.
I'm sorry.
You ma-
Major Adriano Castellari. My bad.
No worries.
I got offline here. Sorry.
Really no problem at all. You got me promoted in a
Yeah.
heck of a second. Come on. So, sir, with your permission, Deputy Commander General, I would like to introduce something about Working Group Number 1. This morning, we've been talking about the topic of human security within NATO. The point is that in the last few years, there have been a lot of policies, interventions, speeches, and dialogues on that. But actually, we've been trying to figure out some possible way ahead in this field. So I will give you some recap on what was the main focus of today, and then some criticalities we've been discussing with the other members of the working group. I would ask you to stand up, please, my colleagues from Working Group Number 1, just to highlight the composition and to say that now I'm just a frontman talking and nothing more. So we've been starting from some generic assumption, that is to say that NATO has been talking about human security starting in 1949. Back from the Washington Treaty, NATO was already talking about safeguarding the freedom, common heritage, and civilization of their peoples. And same goes for the latest capstone document, the 2022 Strategic Concept. It mentions human security alongside with climate change, women, peace, and security agenda, and everything across the three main core tasks of NATO. So this means that human security has its own relevance. Real problem is that in the years, NATO set a lot of different policies on human security and on the descending cross-cutting topics, starting from 2004 with policy on combating trafficking in human beings, then going upwards with the protection of children in conflicts, the way forward. As you can see from the picture, there's always a dialogue between UN, United Nations. We always have to remember our overarching authority when it comes to international environment. And going to the Warsaw Summit, what's that? Okay. 2016, when NATO came out, let's see if it works. It's not working anymore. Okay. Protection of civilians and building integrity policies. And going forward, we got 2019. In the London Summit, NATO mentions human security in saying that NATO is stepping up with human security. Same goes for 2021, conflict-related sexual violence, and conference on cultural property protection that took place on February this year. Policy yet to be drafted, but as you can see, we got a lot of scattered policy. And we got no unique document. As everybody knows here, when it comes to military, we need one direction, one unique direction to be followed. Also because maybe we lack a bit of interpretation. In this view, and NATO SPCO is participating in that, starting from yesterday and going on today, finally SHAPE J9 is conducting this first Human Security Framework Development Workshop, which highlights the real need to have this view on human security. What happens in NATO is that up to today, we were divided. On one side, from the political side, with the approach and guiding principle dated October 2022, but had one kind of approach, and with what came out of International Military Staff, the EGP 01 Allied John Doctrine, different approach in identifying the cross-cutting topics. So you could see it's quite awkward that NATO inside, in its two bodies, produces two documents that are one but not the same. And still missing a NATO human security definition, still recalling the one coming from the United Nations General Assembly resolution. But in all this, what we can assume is that all these cross-cutting topics, they do entail crimes. And when we're talking about crimes, we're talking about protecting civilians from the indiscriminate use of force, preventing the conflict-related sexual violence that do consist, for example, in ethnic cleansing. Think of forced marriages, forced pregnancies, or abortions. Combating trafficking human beings, and it connects with internally displaced people and people being smuggled, for example, for the sake of the removal of organs. Children are conflict, killing, maiming, recruiting child soldiers. Cultural property protection, which must be seen not only as protecting your heritage, but also as protecting your own country from organized crime and terrorist organizations, since most of the stuff that is being looted when talking about cultural piece of arts, they become a fund, they become financing, illicit financing for these organizations. Building integrity, because everyone needs to be held accountable for anything. And what happens if NATO and its deployment take advantage of some criminal enterprise while in deployment, not because they want to, but just because they follow the quickest way? Sexual exploitation and abuse refer also to what the force might be conducting inside the theater of operation, which means that what happens if your soldier is going to take advantage of local prostitution? This jeopardizes the entire mission. A gender perspective and women, peace and security agenda, since each of our approach must be tailored to meet the needs of men, women, boys and girls, depending on their sex, which is a biological constant, and depending on their gender, which comes out of the social structure. What we started reasoning about is that cross-cutting topics entail crimes in our home country, while police will take the lead because we're talking about crimes. So in a NATO deployment, same applies by transferring the same construct that stability policing should take the lead. And by this, why not stability policing be the arm wing of human security? Because human security is made of a lot, for example, of NGOs. They do not have any possibility to counter and face some offensive measures against them, and they need to be protected, and human rights and human security needs to be upheld somehow. But in this reasoning, we found a lot of criticalities. First of all, we talk about stability policing, we talk about picking at the present police officers, depriving them from their national duties, securing their streets, and sending them abroad maybe 1,000 miles away, and this implies maybe also political problems. We should maybe follow the very high readiness joint task force model. So when you have already a defined set of forces that can be easily and readily and rapidly deployed. Same goes for human security training. How many people inside the military, but I would say also inside the police, do have an appropriate human security training? At the present, probably in the military structure, only civil military cooperation units do have that. But if you think of NATO, we got one multinational CIMIC group, and that is definitely not enough to face all the challenges that await us. Same goes for a pre-deployment training, which should be appropriate, which should contain elements about the customs of the local population where we're supposed to operate, which should contain their belief, their lawfare organization. And if you do not know who you're going to deploy, how could you provide this? What happens most of the time is that your HQ is calling, you got 1 week short notice to be deployed, and you know nothing about the place where you're going to go. And that goes the cultural clash with the population. And again, the mission is jeopardized because we're going for the good, but we're being misunderstood for the bad. And most of all, NATO needs a human security definition which should be precise alongside a human security and operation framework policy. I said before with military. Military needs a precise way to be followed. So as a possible way ahead, and this I anticipate that I decided to steal some thoughts also from our director, Colonel de Magistris. We thought of a possible proposal of creating a NATO constabulary or stability policing high readiness force. That is to say, a brigade level maybe force, already defined and ready to be deployed forces, which means that I already identify them. I take them out priorly to their national duties and dedicate to stability policing possible commitments, absolutely interoperable with the warfighting component, because we always must remember that setting human security inside NATO is not that easy. NATO was born more than 70 years ago as a warfighting defensive alliance. So putting something new like this, that is to say, be careful when you're bombing that side, that position of the enemy, because there might be a hospital, a cultural site, or whatever refers to human security, is not so, I wouldn't say easy, but not to be taken into account without any further consideration. Possible advantages of this. We could address resilience and human security from the very beginning of a crisis. As the deputy commander said before, stability policing can operate in the full spectrum of a conflict. So what happens nowadays is that the war fighting is going along. You all do remember President Bush on the aircraft carrier saying mission accomplished after 2 months of Afghanistan. But what we found out, especially when working along with the SIGAR, the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, was that the mission was very, very yet to be accomplished. Because we might have won one battle, but the war was yet to be fought about that. If stability policing comes from the beginning of a crisis, it can sustain. Think of resilience. Resilience is based especially on continuity of government. Government is being granted by, especially what? Police forces. If police forces are not working, people is afraid also to get out of their own home, get out of their houses, just to go to perform their job. Can you imagine a state with this? You cannot. You do not have resilience. Human security is the same. Stability policing can advise, can perform, and always recalling a deputy commander can replace the indigenous police forces and carry out these duties defending the local population. By that, we win the battle of narratives. Our adversary, as you know, there's a lot of importance built on strategic communication. Our adversary will always try to carry out disinformation against us, saying that we're going on the spot for the sake of our interests, while it's not. How do we win that? Performing these duties, telling the population, I'm here to protect you, I'm saving your church, I'm saving your children, is not being recruited. I'm saving your wife, she's not being raped because I'm protecting her. If we do like this, the adversary will not have any support from the local population, and we just deprive also the insurgency of a possible way of funding of new combatants that will for sure address our forces on the spot. And if you got the host nation population support, you start gathering intelligence. We had a concept, we developed it lately, law enforcement intelligence. That is to say what we do in our home country, the community policing. We go spot to spot, we talk with everyone. And imagine like the women of a village saying, come on, tomorrow, don't go to the market. A suicide bombing is going to take place. Will they tell us this story if we're not defending them? Probably not. Probably they're just favoring our adversary, and we'll be losing a lot of people, a lot of young, good soldiers and police officers, just not for having taken care of this aspect. And last, I would say, but not least, especially when it comes to prosecuting for war crimes, stability policing starts collecting evidence related to possible war crimes. We're conducting, for example, the Battlefield Evidence Project. We're preserving crime scene course. What is vital is to intervene from the very first moment, gather evidence, and collect it with the proper chain of custody. But that is something that belongs to experienced law enforcement, properly trained law enforcement officers too. We keep it, and we avoid any possible mistake whenever it comes to time for the International Criminal Court to prosecute war criminals. Okay. This is mainly our outcome. I hope I haven't killed anybody by PowerPoint now. Please, any question is welcome.
Adriano, thank you for that, that recap of your morning's work. I think I have some questions online, but I'd like to open it to the floor or to the panel to see if there's any comments before I move on to the online questions.
I would rather go with the questions.
Okay, all right, sir. So I have a question here that's it's in regards to pre-deployment training and preparation in regards to human security. The question is, what is the most relevant challenge with regards to training police and military as they prepare to deploy? What is the most important part of human security that they should be most in tune to?
So NATO a lot of times recall the idea that other than respecting only international law, there is also customary law, local tradition, local beliefs, and of course, interregional or tribal organization. The most critical part is to get everyone acquainted with a scenario where they're going to be sent, where they're going to operate. Also to link, for example, with the correct key leaders. If you do not know that a specific area is entangled not only by the so-called state administration, but you got, for example, also tribal leaders, which are being taken in high consideration by the population, alongside with the spiritual leaders. That is something you must know, because from the very beginning you need to engage them to get all the information possible. Also this is law enforcement intelligence. You could, for example, get a glance of internal clashes that could be solved just by calling a meeting between a lot of parties that do not usually do that, just for the sake of ancient conflicts or, for example, ethnic or tribal clashes happening during the year. That is crucial. But if you do not identify far before the deployment itself who you're going to send, how can you provide such a training, which cannot last just a couple hours or be just neglected in a PowerPoint presentation or an online session? It needs to be delved deep in.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor?
I have a question.
Okay, Steve?
Thank you so much. What a great topic. Sir, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Caruso, I'm the Chief of Protection for CTAF and a military police officer for about 30 years. Absolutely fantastic briefing. I appreciate. So the one thing I kept thinking about while you were talking about this, as a military police officer for 30 years in several very bad parts of the world that we've all been in, what I've always found most difficult is when you separate the warfighting function and the law enforcement portion of it. Those are two very different paths, and some of the agendas that you've tabled, I see that the authorities to do some of those things are seems like they would be your biggest challenges. Did you talk about the authorities, and do you have any? How do you address the authority to do some of these things? For warfighting, the authorities are clear. Fight and win the wars. But when you try and do the law enforcement capability and capacity, it's very ambiguous to what we would have the authority to do in those types of in that type of support.
Okay, I completely get your point. So first thing to take into account is that this proposal is something that should be discussed, of course, at a political level. When it comes to authorities, as you could read, I wrote on proposed interoperability with, which means that, this is my personal opinion, my view, the first commander should be only one with both the capabilities at his disposal, and first commander should know, okay, I got this set of capabilities, which means I got my lever man. Do I need the screwdriver or do I need the knife? Same goes for that, so the commander can choose the most suited unit to perform that task. And that means, as we always advocate the theory of the open cloud for stability policing, it means that it could be a very basic stability policing task that can easily be, for example, to manage a detention facility. You could just get an infantry company and train them properly. Same goes for crowd and riot control. When it comes to very difficult, for example, crime scene, entailing, for example, suicide bombing, where you would need highly skilled forensic professional, probably coming from the law enforcement, be them from a gendarmerie type force, or maybe someone that joined the Army Reserve of the United States and was trained for that. But everybody needs to work to the same extent. The point is, if you from the very beginning do possess all the set of capabilities, then you can go all the way straight and decide what suits best the situation. If you get along only with the war fighting at the beginning, you'll be in trouble, because you will need to delegate some tasks to people that, even if they have the best will possible, even an iron will, they would not perform well. It would be like asking me to maneuver a tank. I wouldn't know where to start.
And you're losing the golden hour. In this, you are also losing the golden hour, which is represented by the opportunity to engage since the onset with the population and with the civilian authorities and with the civil society, avoiding the risk to engage with the wrong persons, maybe mafia or organized crime representatives. So it is very important since the early deployment of the force to rely on a police capacity which support the action and
Sure.
focus on human security as a globe.
Very well said, sir. That is why we're pointing out also building integrity. That is where also SP can step up and saying, watch out for this enterprise, watch out for this person, and try to break the circle of, for example, nepotism that you can find in a crisis state.
Thank you, sir. I think we have time for one more question. If there's anyone in the crowd. I'm out of online questions. Anybody, sir, gentlemen? No? So I have a question. You mentioned the constabulary force, and could you briefly, in 5 minutes or less, describe how this would work? Who would be suitable to serve in this constabulary force?
Sure.
Is it open to all NATO members, or is it just people with gendarme-type forces?
No, we do always recall the open club theory. Well, the term constabulary refers, as you can remember, from the 1939 U.S. Constabulary Force that was based in Germany in the aftermath of World War II. The point is that everyone can have its own role. That is something that needs, of course, to be discussed in advance. GTFs, we do look at GTFs as probably the most suited for the most comprehensive set of expertise, but at the same time, we must always consider the scalability of them, because to scale GTFs also in this constabulary force, it would mean always to deprive from national security, so either nations do start enrolling or enlisting more for the sake of such a proposal, else we will take advantage of everyone, especially when it comes to brainstorming before a deployment. Having different backgrounds, different set of expertise will just give benefit to the action of stability policing. So there is actually room for everyone. We've had Hungarian paratroopers performing in the MSU, and they performed well. It's just a matter of task, equipment, and proper training, and of a real commander that decides who is the best for that situation at that very moment.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's give group number one, Adriano Castellari, a big round of applause. Thank you. Bravo. Grazie mille. Sir, do we have any comments from the presidential table on this?
You took my question about the constabulary force because there are a lot of doubts, and my doubt was also if the proposal is to have an independent brigade or an integrated brigade in the war fighting components on the other components.
Well, the brigade should be constituted by all things. Brigade should be worse. Okay. Should be made up of selected forces. As I said before, an open club of forces completely the complete interoperability means that it should be under the direct command of the force commander. And the integration is to be determined on the spot by the commander. As said before, a set of capabilities and various tasks to be accomplished. Nothing prevents the commander to say, okay, we need to secure the cultural heritage sites, but the rest of the SP brigade is committed to other, so let's select an infantry company to support and secure the area, secure the road to reach the cultural site, provide long-range security for the operators to intervene. But of course, we're working to the same extent, so no one is better than another, no one can consider himself as the best possible, just a matter of who's the most suited at the moment. The more capabilities we provide to commanders, the better he will perform in giving and delegating tasks to everyone.
Sir?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to commend the working group for its insight, and particularly also for the effort made in presenting these outcomes with a very informative presentation. So thank you very much. But I would like to add a couple of remarks to your excellent job by saying that the focus on human security does not only belong to the NATO. I mean, it is something that is in common, very much in common with the United Nations and the European Union approaches. Since I would say Brahimi report, but the Independent Panel of Peace Operation 2015 outcomes of the Independent Panel of Peace Operations, the United Nations have put at the focus of their action the aspects related to human security, all the cross-cutting issues that we have seen during the presentation are very much in common with the United Nations and with the development of the strategic guidance framework for police operation in peace operations. I mean, they are defined in their procedures, norms, and policies. The same goes with the European Union. With the European Union 2016 Global Strategy, and more recently the 2022 Strategic Compass. Missions are people-centered. All the needs of the populations are taken in due account. There is a civilian approach for the European Union has the unique capacity to highlight the civilian aspects of crisis management and as well as to build on the resilience of the receiving countries. So there is much in common. Nowadays, there is a high level of awareness at the different international organizations on the aspects related to the UN security. So I really encourage all of us and all of you to deepen these aspects from the different perspectives of the different international organizations. And this is the reason why we are discussing in this trilateral meeting with the European Gendarmerie Force, the NATO Stability Policing, and the COESPO to enlarge and to broaden our understanding of the different phenomena with a more comprehensive and integrated approach. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, well done, Working Group 1. Let's give them another round of applause, please. Okay, our next group, Working Group 2, which was Stability Policing Role in Kosovo, a Field Perspective, will be presented by Colonel Maurizio Mele. Sir?
say that Colonel Maurizio Mele is just back from Kosovo, where he commanded the multinational specialized units.
That's the reason I'm here now.
Yes, you've been chosen for this task.
Thank you very much. Sirs, authorities, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure for me to be here just to take the floor and try to give a sort of overview of the actual situation in Kosovo. As General Borbano said, I've been deployed as MSU Regiment Commander along 2022. So, fantastic experience, absolutely different from what probably we have talked about during this morning and this afternoon. So it's absolutely perfect because it's a different solution that needs a different approach. And probably what we have, practically we tried to define this during our working group. And I want to thank, first of all the colleagues coming from Eurogenfor, NATO's PCOE, obviously COESPO, and a special thanks to my colleague, Colonel Luva, the Deputy Head of Mission in Kosovo, ULEX, and again, we had the opportunity to meet for the second time in Kosovo, so thank you very much. Just in a quick, trying not to if we have the opportunity to go on, probably now, yes. Okay, this was the topic as we roll on field perspective from Kosovo area. So this morning we tried to introduce a sort of a singularity of Kosovo here in this particular period, and I've been lucky to test with my hands on the field the differences that we have to face with the first respect that we have in front of us during all our life, civilians. Because we are working, stability policing, we can define it according to different perspectives. We can choose different methodologies to bring on the effort. But it's important to highlight that the most important thing in our hands is to protect the civilians, the ones that have no other protection, that are absolutely alone and need to be protected. Also, in a sort of, if I may, regular condition, and it would be the right situation to verify this exactly in Kosovo. As you know, actually in Kosovo we have three main actors. So we enlightened only three, but you know probably there are other national and international public and private organization entities of different level with different capacities and so on. But probably the real stakeholders in Kosovo actually, obviously the main body of the NATO KFOR force in Kosovo, Kosovo force, obviously European Union with ULEX and UNMIC. Absolutely not in order of relevance, because especially in the last years, every single organization had defined as a specific field trying to maintain a strict connection, interlink day by day. And the situation is absolutely in evolution. I was lucky because also in 2017 I was in Kosovo as battalion commander. After 5 years, many things changed. Many things changed. And probably I can say that all the three organizations, the three main actors, were able to reorganize ourselves. And probably I try to announce one of the consideration. Probably is a continuous process in evolution, in daily evolution. Let me use this expression. So, the NATO, the main body, the great part of the international effort entered in Kosovo in 1999, so 24 years ago. After 24 years of commitment, did the situation improve? And the tactical, this would be a short overview, very practical, very tactical, probably. We are all professionals, so it's what we need to know to better arrange our effort for the future. I think, and together with our group inside, all the components can say, yes, situation is absolutely now much more better than in the past. In 1999, we had AK-47 all around the country. Military organization, lots of years spent to demobilize and disarm all the people involved. I don't care about north-south, different approaches, reasons. It's not this the right scene to discuss about this situation. It's important to try to have a picture of that situation. Now, this morning we talked about this aspect. If you walk in the center of Pristina, you find a modern, absolutely nice town, a real European capital. It seems that everything works in a fantastic way. You find restaurants, dancings, and social and cultural events, well organized, so you will be lucky for this aspect. It is absolutely very interesting. So, it means that something has changed, especially for the population, especially for the population. Is it everything solved? Absolutely no, because there is a great, an important division from the northern part, the four northern municipalities, and the rest of the country. In the north and on the border, the problems are still absolutely live, and we have to face this kind of troubles. So, trying to come back to our aspect, because we are talking about stability policing, and we have learned during this year, specifically for the NATO component and for the NATO doctrine, now we have well defined the position of a multinational specialized unit. It tried to cover, is perfect to fill the security gap. Just in a few words, the security gap is exactly what happens when the warm war is finished, but we haven't at our disposal a full functioning government, authorities, country with a specific organized structure and so on. A sort of gray area. Is it possible for the army to conduct this kind of operation? No, they are organized and structured to operate like a military force. They do their job. Are they ready to operate like a police force? No. Is there a police force, especially in 1999, there were a police force well organized, capable to operate in terrain? Absolutely no. This is exactly what we define security gap. And this is what MSU tried to cover during the time with special authorities, with special powers. In the past, we had the capability to operate, arrest, body searches, searches in the buildings, detention, and so on. So do the classical, let me use this expression, kind of police activities. Okay? So is there still a security gap? Based on what I said before, it's a fantastic country with a lot of things, very nice things to see. Absolutely no. Because it's something changed. We are not facing on the ground threats like people using AK-47 from the day to the night, threatening our guys. During these last 10 years, nothing real threatening for the security of the country happened. Okay, 2022 was the worst year in the last 15. these are not my words, these are words coming from the Prime Minister, Mr. Kurti, but that's the real life. Something capable to create disruption of the situation? No. But create troubles for the population? Certainly, yes. And this can allow the group to conclude with, no, there is no still a security gap. There is something different that probably we have to face in a different world. If we help me, great. Is stability policing currently crucial and applied to the Kosovo reality? And this is a specific, a particular answer. We tried to explore if SP is still real, important, relevant, because if not, probably it's time to go back, to come to our countries. It's important to understand what are we doing now for the population, for the civilians, for that reality. The reason that in 1999, with the resolution 1244, allowed the coalition to enter inside that country. And so, no, we tried to find out a sort of phrase like this, not in the term in which stability policing is doctrinally understood, such as the bridge capacity concept, such the concepts that we find inside the documentation publication is something different, because also the military instrument, the gendarmeries, but also the international civilian organization must adequate their behavior according to the real situation. Remaining on definition written on a book, on a publication, absolutely important, that must be evaluated and disseminated absolutely all around the world. Doesn't mean that on the field, on the ground, something must change in respect of the population that we serve. So probably why stability policing as regularly, as doctrinally understood is different, because now at the moment, different years, Kosovo police is absolutely, is operationally capable. Okay, we wrote with some political caveats in the north, just to be clear, special units cannot go in the northern part of the country. They are not allowed. Remember that in Kosovo, at the moment, the government doesn't have an army. They have something different. They are called KSF, Kosovo Security Force. They are trying, also in many countries, KSF are trained to become, in a future, a real army capable to maintain security on the border of the country. They feel absolutely important, this aspect. It's one of the goals that they want to reach. And I understand them, because outside they are threatened. It's absolutely, I discovered the warm water saying this, together with the internal troubles. But internally, they are capable to face the different threats. And Kosovo police, I can assure, and Cesare will be able to confirm, because he's still now on the ground, they are absolutely capable to face the different threats. They are well equipped, well trained, and they have changed their posture in their relationship with the population. It's absolutely changed. In 2017, so no 20 years ago, I saw policemen with not perfect uniform, not polite on the in the streets during the traffic control. Now I have seen, in last weeks, people going to ask support to police commanders, to police station, support for the daily activity, not strictly or always related with crimes. Something is changing. And probably this is the field on which we can move altogether. Actually, in Kosovo, Kosovo police is the first responder. I may say the regular responder. The first and the right responder. We also in our country, if something is under threat, we call our 112 or 911, or the police is ready to intervene. And this is what Kosovo police is capable to do. But ULEX is the second responder, and also NATO, we have the third responder in case of need, in case the situation escalate and the police force, regular police force, Kosovo KP, is not able to full define and full find out the solution. Remember that after 24 years, all the international actors has gained a relevant relation with population. They know us very well. The youngest knows all the international actors since they were born. It's normal to see different uniform along the streets. And so, probably this will be what is it now the concept of stability policing is something that, absolutely respecting the doctrine and the concepts, is in evolution. In Kosovo, stability policing evolved during these last years accordingly to the particular political and security situation. And SP is absolutely relevant because we must consider that now, according to what we find out during our discussion as working group, it's crucial. What? To show the international presence. It's relevant to be present. The first thing that, together with my guys, and Cesare received every single day this aspect, please stay. Please stay with us. Not for specific threats, but because the international community offer a great, a significant help for the future. I must tell you the truth. Probably also for why not economic reason. It's important to consider this. We must not cover our face using one finger. Okay, it's important, but it's the economy that moves on a country. We know very well how relevant is the economy in a country. So just to note this aspect. But population has created during these years a specific particular relationship with in particular with whom wearing a very well-known uniform, the gendarmerie uniform, are close to them, capable to respond to their needs. The gendarmerie forces, the police officers, operates like a more familiar uniform. They are seen like regular police, okay, coming from other countries for sure, but near to them. We do not use it as gendarmerie tanks. Tanks are necessary to grant other aspects, thanks to God, that we have tanks. But in a certain moment, in a certain situation, things must change. Absolutely must change. Also, if I may, a personal remark, during the last weeks before my coming back to Vicenza, there were a new proposal to change the weapons used by the Kosovo police. At the moment, they use the AK-47. in a modern police approach, it's not convenient, not for the military, not for the soldiers, not for the police officer, for the population. To see someone with an assault rifle, it's not a nice idea. And so, stability policing passed through also this, in these aspects, to support, mentoring, advising local authorities, the government, starting from the chief of police up to the last operator, last police officers in the southern part of the country. And probably now it's time to change the AK-47 with something used by a modern police force. And we are trying to find a solution. Is on his way, and we are waiting for the future. And so aspects like this, because it's important, this is another personal opinion. Yes, it's important to define concepts, to describe doctrine, but we must remember every single day the real needs of the population. Because if we forget this, we create distance between them and us. And the reason for our presence, when I say our presence, I consider all the organization, just because this is the doctrinal hub, and so we must consider ourselves all involved in the same final goal: protect and serve population. And so, if we create, or if we don't create the right condition to avoid this distance, we fail the mission. Absolutely. I'm really convinced about this. To support Kosovo police on request, now the term agreed is coordinated patrol. They, Kosovo police, remain absolutely with the full power to operate. But if you move in Kosovo-wide, you find patrols, in this specific moment, of ULEX together with KP. Together, especially during certain situation and during certain moments of the day, especially during the night, according to particular specific situation, they move with coordinated patrols. It's important because this, with joint trainings, other important aspects for this aspect, at the moment NATO doesn't have the opportunity to train. This is a specific mandate of ULEX. At the moment, NATO must verify, must monitor the situation, because according to the growing up of the capabilities and the skills and the abilities of the Kosovo police, we must report for the future, and the future is the end state. One day the mission must end. The mission intended according to the 1994 resolution. Something must change. The time, this is the question. How long? It will take more than a couple of weeks. And we have to face great trouble. Probably someone much more prepared than me highlighted the political aspects. These are political decision, and the evaluation of certain terms absolutely in this last period is absolutely a challenge. To allow KFOR, if necessary, to intervene gradually in security incidents, this means that probably the handover, takeover, real, complete, defined from who maintained the order in the previous 20 years and who now is in charge for the present and the future of the country. The Kosovo people, the Kosovo population, with their police and the other institutions and the other entities capable to move on. So, increased capacity building within KEP means helping them to gain trust from local communities, especially among the minorities. This is the real, final, important, relevant goal: trust. And in this case, all the international actors can play a crucial role. If you allow me, in Carabinieri we are famous all over the world because we have organized in a very particular organization. We are present also in small towns, 3, 4 Carabinieri inside the station. They have the opportunity to talk with the entire population of the village, of the town, the little town. So everyone know our Carabinieri. And what is our best ability? Talk and listen. Probably the contrary, vice versa. Listen, first of all, and after talk. It's important. People want this aspect. The daily activity is made by these simple things, but it's important to maintain our feet on the ground, boots on the ground. So it's absolutely crucial to go on this aspect and maintain absolutely relevant the relationship with the population. And the stability policing organization, structure, the actors directly involved in the ESP can make the difference. Operate in a different way, something new. Probably we will have to work very much on this aspect for the next 20 years, probably with a prudent provision. But this is the future. SP provide to be a beneficial tool in the process of a real and permanent stabilization and democratization of Kosovo. Our conclusion, simple, is this. Is actual? Yes. Is important? Absolutely. We must continue on this path? Yes, we must. And probably this will be absolutely interesting also for the doctrinal aspect, because we have to develop from the bottom to the top, and not on the contrary, catching from the field, assessing, analyzing, and trying to define in concept that can be used for our daily activity in mission. SP evolves beyond the security gap. We think that probably this is the expression that we can use in this aspect. It's relevant for a multidimensional and holistic approach to protect and serve population in post-conflict areas. This, according to us, according to our work during this afternoon, is the best result that we can achieve in the future. I don't want to bore you anymore. I'm at your disposal for any kind of question, and thanks again to my working group colleagues.
Maurizio, thank you. It's obvious that you have a lot of time and energy invested in Kosovo, and your remarks were very, very poignant. I'm afraid we've run out of time, but you've answered all the questions that were put forward and voted on throughout your remarks. It talks about challenging political issues. I think we discussed. You mentioned that. You touched on that. There's also a question about the importance of the EULEX mission in the environment. How important is it? Absolutely. Is it important? And I think you clearly touched on that. I would like to give some time to the panel here to see if there are any comments or questions from the leaders, esteemed leaders here. Thank you.
Let me make a comment and maybe pose a question. The point is, the international community was quite successful in Bosnia and Kosovo, as you mentioned. You focused more on Kosovo than in Bosnia, but we can say, we can agree upon the international community was successful in the Balkans. It took a long time. We are still working over there in different ways. International community was not such successful in Iraq, in Afghanistan, or in Libya. So why we had what was the approach? What do you think? It was the approach, the military approach, the stability policing approach. We could not understand the problem, or how do you feel this?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Probably this is the question that during these last 25 years was now right. Thank you. Was the real challenge for all who was involved in giving answers. And probably, sir, the answer is all the things that you mentioned, and probably others. Why this kind of approach was successful for the military backgrounds? Absolutely, yes. If you have no military backgrounds, a real good preparation, training, you can accomplish the mission. The police backgrounds, absolutely. Because after using the weapons, you have to avoid the using of the weapons. The other, protecting who the weapons doesn't have do not have in their homes. So it's important. Probably one of the most important things is to continue in giving, not the sensation to be invaders, but we are there to support people. A polite approach. Yes, not forgetting our self-defense. The protection of the force is one of the most important relevant aspects for the military, also for the police. But protection of the force doesn't mean that I do not need to have a good relation. Probably in the past, in the traditional approach, when you saw a police officer, you were ready with his long rifle, with a real rude position. In this way, no one will decide to become in confidence with them. So a lot of important aspects were absolutely spread out without no effects. I forgot to mention probably another relevant aspect. SP has changed also because one aspect has increased at a maximum level, the intelligence, the management. It doesn't, now the war is not won by who has the most powerful weapons, but probably, and for sure, I'm convinced about this, only who is capable to manage intelligence is the real winner of every single kind of conflict, not only war. And probably capabilities in a relationship with the population is the real golden key, because you have the opportunity to assume, to gather information, and this, in these 7-8 years, for example, MSU did this. Our main deployment is info gathering, patrols. It's important to announce that and to highlight MSU is the third military component in the hand of COMCAFOR. So it's absolutely clear that the MSU is a military component of the force in Kosovo. But during my last year, and also in 2017, I've never been deployed like a Ridion call platoon. We were ready, but never deployed. We were trained a lot to be ready to deploy. But Kosovo police solved every kind of troubles. And so we were, so what have you done during this year? Talking, listening people, making reports, analyzing and have a sort give to the authorities, to the local authorities, to the mission authorities, reports trying to describe the real situation, not from the media, not from the networks or similar, or from the newspaper, exactly what happened on the ground. And managing this kind of information, the situation is absolutely, during these last years, completely changed. And I love to think that this behavior has changed also the training and the behavior of the Kosovo police. I've seen the guys under the command of Cesare Luba absolutely daily talking on the streets, taking coffee. I've never seen in the past on a police officer, a Kosovo police officer, drinking coffee with a population. Now it happens. Something is changing. Probably not at the moment, not in the north. And this is the reason that we have to work a lot. Thank you, sir.
If I may add to the answer, something to the answer to the Deputy Commander, I would recall an interesting article written by Colonel Giuseppe De Magistri, the NATO Stability Policing Center of Excellence Director, who unfortunately had an unexpected emergency within his NATO responsibilities and had to attend a trip abroad, who wrote this article answering for a call of paper of our Italian Forces Center for Advanced Studies under the title Stability Policing, the Great Absent in Afghanistan Failure. It's exactly focused on the question you raised and providing all the answers to this topic. And by the occasion I have the floor, I just raise one remark, one comment to your excellent presentation. I slightly disagree with you when you say there are no gaps, public security gaps to fill, because temporarily
For sure.
you can have new gaps. And this is exactly what's happening right now in Kosovo, where following the last November car plates crisis, the Kosovo ethnic Serb police resigned, as well as all the other officials reside in the 4 northern
600.
municipalities.
600.
600 of them are missing. Kosovo police presence is not very well,
Absolutely.
from the south, from ethnic, has not been welcomed. And so there was a need for filling a new void. And by occasion, we have here today, you mentioned several times Mr. Luba here present, the deputy head of mission in ULEX. But by occasion, we have in this room the rapid deployable reserve provider, Colonel Gonçalves, that through the European Gendarmerie Force answer to the need of the rapid deployment of additional forces to the already existing FPU within the framework of ULEX, and the customer, the beneficial of this rapid deployment, Mr. Luba. As well as some of the providers, including the Lithuanian representative that are present in this rapid reaction force, or rapid formed police unit. So temporarily, we can have revamps or attempts to revamp the
Absolutely.
the
You got
discussion,
the point.
I would say, or even the crisis, and so the need for continuing the presence on the spot, as well as from K4.
Absolutely. So during the preparation of the slides, we're discussing about this, and exactly my fault. It was a provocation because probably it's not a good idea to say no more threats. No, yes, we try to provocate, but as always, you catched me. So perfect, fantastic. You are my director, sure. So,
This was a good point, you know, just to justify he's gonna have a very hard work in Kosovo. That
good
was a
luck,
good
sir.
point.
Good
That's
luck,
the
sir.
point.
Yeah. No,
So let's give Working Group 2 another round of applause. Thank you.
no, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, shifting gears a little bit from an area where it appears as though the European Union and others have implemented something that's very successful and seems to be addressing the security issues on the ground as they approach. Working Group 3, led by a stability policing expert in his own right, Colonel Nicola Bianchi of COESPU, with deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, is covering Somalia, so stability policing in Somalia.
Sir, with your permission, first of all, let me thank the Working Group number 3, especially the members of the Center of Excellence of Stability Police Center, the NATO SPCO, and the European Gendarmerie Force members, because they have conducted a deep analysis on the Somalia situation. And this morning, we have analyzed the Somalian country from different points of view, from the economic point of view, the institutional capacity building point of view, and we identified the situation is completely different from Kosovo, first of all. There's a huge security gap in Somalia. This has to be clear. And just to give you an idea of just a recap of the presentation, just to give you an idea about demography, I would like to draw your attention on these numbers. These numbers are quite clear. Also in terms of big problems to deal with in terms of security, in terms of economic growth. Like, for instance, the total youth unemployment rate, which is 34%. So Somalia can be considered one of the poorest country of the world, without no doubts. Also looking at the data of the birth rate, the population growth, and also, you know, the community structures. The community structures is clans, sub-clans, and clan families. This is, in terms of cultural environment, has to be clear. So, the humanitarian situation. The humanitarian situation is very, very, very complex. We have the high rates of displacement due to conflict and insecurity. An increased competition for national resources. This is another aspect to be taken in consideration. A very fragile health system, so this is another point. Ethnic exclusion and discrimination, structural gender inequality and gender-based sexual violence, conflict-related sexual violence, forced recruitment of children, human rights systematically violated. It has been estimated that in a population of 60 million, we are speaking about 7.7 million Somali women, men, and children were estimated to require humanitarian assistance in 2022. So this can give you a clear picture of the huge security gap which lays in Somalia's country, and that's to be analyzed and discussed. Just a very short and brief recap on the international organizations, UN and African Union missions. The first one in 1992, AMSOM 1. The second one, 1993, AMSOM 2. And then UN AMSOM in 2013, the third one. AMISON. And the last one is 2022 ATMIS, the African Union missions. Other international missions. MIADID is strongly present. The Carabinieri-led mission since 2013 in Djibouti. Till now, they have trained 2,000 members of the Somali police force. Federal Dervish, the main focus, and 700 deployed on the field. UCAP Somalia is a European Union civilian crisis management mission since 2012, and they are mainly focused on police capacity building and also maritime security. The maritime security is a very important challenge for Somalia due to the configuration of the country and also to the presence of big problems in terms of smuggling from the neighboring countries. EUTM Somalia, which is a EU military mission since 2010, and they provide strategic level advice and training mainly focused on Somali armed forces. But just to have a picture of the country, of the so-called contributing countries involved in international missions in Somalia, we have a remarkable number of countries. MIADID, UCAP Somalia, you can have a look in this slide at the list of countries involved, and EUTM Somalia. And there are also other security partners, international partners, like for instance, USA is deeply involved in Somalia to support this brigade of the Somali National Army, and the type of support, weapons and equipment. Turkey is deeply involved as well in training and equipping, also the special force. UK, Emirates, and also Eritrea, Uganda, Ethiopia, Egypt, training the Somali National Army. So there is a huge and strong presence, international presence in this country. But just a recap about Somali Police Force. Somali Police Force is the main civil law enforcement in the country and is under the jurisdiction and the responsibility of Ministry of the Internal Security. It consists of two main branches, the federal police and state police. Speaking about numbers, we are speaking about around 40,000 members of the police. The tasks they perform, overall, sir. The different tasks they perform: crime prevention, dispute resolution, protection of traffic regulations, fight against terrorism. But there is a long list of main shortcomings and challenges, like, for example, the mistrap of populations, also a big number of incidents of violence involving members of the local police with the local populations, the territorial disparity, increased criminality, and above all, the scarce level of training and lack of heavy weapons. In this process, local police is supported in terms of capacity building by ATMIS, the African Union mission. We have, the working group members, we have identified as a list of outcomes on Somali police force training. Because we had the chance also to have good conversations with some members from UCAP missions, with some previous training unit commander of Djibouti mission. So we could get some important inputs and information about the situation of the training of the Somali police force. And we have identified this list of outcomes. There is a huge lack of training. This is a big problem. It happens that the Somali police force was forced to send 6,000 new recruiters to the surrounding countries to be trained. So we have identified as outcomes a big lack of training. And also differently from the army, there is also a big lack of equipment. The army is more or less sufficiently equipped. The police is not. It happens that, for instance, Miadit mission, they have trained a remarkable number of federal Dervish police, but these members are not deployed on the ground because of the lack of equipment. So they got the training, but they don't have the equipment. So this is a big problem to face. Also the impact of training. So we need to know, and this is not clear at this stage, a sort of tracking. After training, are they deployed on the ground with the proper needs, with the proper measures, also in the right units, and above all, in the right way? So this is another question so far and outcomes that we have identified. Another big outcomes that we have identified is a total lack. Total, I would skip total. There's a lack of coordination among the different players. So many players in charge of training, but there is a lack of coordination among them. There is a lack of coordination among UCAP. There is a lack of coordination among UCAP and Miadit. And I was told that there are some meetings which occur. They try to make a sort of coordination plan among the different actors, but it happens that sometimes they don't know what they are doing in terms of training. So we have identified these outcomes as a very important outcome to be highlighted. Another point is the advising. The advising is done only at strategic level, not on the district level, because of the security problems which are on the ground, because of the security situation which is on the ground. So there is a big advising activity in Mogadishu, for example, but speaking about the rural areas, the districts in the country, there is a lack of advising by the international community. So the strategic advising is good, but has to be performed also at the very low levels. It means district, but because of the security situation, these things cannot occur. As the outcomes of training, we also have identified the need to perform particular kind of training, like, for example, the so-called community-oriented policing. Because what is very important, and that this has to be clear for everybody, is to gain legitimacy by the population. And to gain legitimacy by the population, the police can do only through the community-oriented policing. So we should intensify the numbers of training on these aspects, on the community-oriented policing. And also the scarce level of education among the police members. This is another key factors which hinder and has a huge impact on the quality of training for the police forces. There is a Somali transition plan in place, which was done in 2018 by the African Union. Is a guide developed by the federal government of Somalia and its partners, which is structured and anchored on a so-called comprehensive approach to security. What is a comprehensive approach to security? It means that as the security has to be done not only by military means, by military operations, by a comprehensive approach including rule of law, economic development, social welfare, and so many other key factors that has to be evaluated in a very global and comprehensive approach to security. And why? The objective was to transfer the security responsibility from ATMIS, the African Union mission, to the Somali security forces. And this is another challenge very, very significant, I would say, when by the end of 2024. We have discussed a lot among our working group members and also with someone from UCAP missions, that this goal, it will be very difficult that could be achieved by the end of 2024. The total transition of the security in the hands of the Somali security forces by ATMIS. This is something that could be very, very difficult to be achieved by the end of 2024. 5 strategic objectives. You can have a look at the slide, which is the biggest threat in Somalia right now, Al-Shabaab, which represent a very strong terrorist institution, I will skip institution, group of criminals and extremist insurgents. They fight against the federal government, made up of 5,000, among 5,000 and 10,000, very well funded. I'm speaking about $100 million per year, they get money. So very well funded, very well armed, very well equipped, and above all, very well distributed around the country, especially in the center and the southern country. So they have a deep control of the area, a deep control of the country. So the threat, the major threat is Al-Shabaab. So degrade Al-Shabaab, prioritize center of influence and also the main supply routes. This is another goal that has to be achieved. Develop the capacity and capability of Somali security forces. This is the objective. The system, the security, the local authority institutions, and also the prioritization of international partners and donor support. This is another big challenge and big objective to be achieved according to this plan. So as I said before, comprehensive means not only by military operations, but at a huge factors that have to be taken in consideration, like the rule of law, for example. Which are the factors that hinder in a very significant way, the successful implementation of the plan? Resources, which are scarce, unfortunately. Insufficient equipment, and also the arms embargo imposed on Somalia by Security Council in 1992. This is another factors which is a critical factors which hinder the Somali transition plan. So just to recap, these are the main challenges and the strategic priorities that we have identified in terms of security gap of the country. Security gap which is big, which is huge, which has different factors, and at the same time has to be filled by a stability policing effort of all the international partners involved. So, main challenges, unfortunately, the core of Somalian instability is for sure the weak governance, because the weak governance create a lot of problems to the Somali institutions. The clan dynamics, and also the under-equipped police force. So we have identified these as the main challenges and the strategic priorities on the ground. And I would say that especially for the Al-Shabaab problems, which is a huge problem to deal with, the new president has adopted new strategies to fight Al-Shabaab. Also because what I said before, we have to gain the legitimacy of the population. Now, the situation is different. In certain regions, in certain districts, Al-Shabaab has gained the legitimacy of the population. And we should put in place an upside-down process, because the police forces, the security force assistance forces, they should gain the legitimacy and the trust and the support of population, which is very important. And the President Moabud in 2023 has put in place a very responsive strategy to fight Al-Shabaab threat. Undermining the financial support. There were something like 240 banks accounts that were shut down in 4 banks in Somalia. Banks accounts that were used by the extremist group for their transaction, for their money, and to gain support, and to pay the so-called illicit trades of weapons, for instance. So these banks' accounts were closed. 70 mobile phones used for the transaction, the money transaction by the insurgents, by the extremists, were shut down, were closed. So this is a good response in terms of strategy by the new presidency. And also to organize, it was organized big meetings of Islamic clerics in the early 2023, where they released, I would say, a sort of fatwa against the insurgents. So this is another key factor which, in a certain way, the population has to be aware that there are rooms to gain legitimacy, and that there must be very good and solid alternatives to the insurgents and to the Al-Shabaab policy. And also, the strategy is starting covering the platforms of terrorist groups, the social networks, which are used by the extremist groups, and a lot of social networks were closed, are under control now, and were banned. So this is a clear example of the strategy of the new policy of President Mohamed 2023 ongoing response strategy for Al-Shabaab, which represents the major threat in the country. So, speaking with my colleagues, with the members of the working group, just to make a very short recap, we have produced a sort of list of recommendations in this big security gap that has to be dealt. We have to expand the professional military education among the institutions, among the Security National Army, among the Somali police forces. We have to increase the level of equipment of Somali police forces. We have to increase because it's lacking at this time. We have to improve also the recruitment system by the use of a leadership selection, so appoint individuals within security forces with the right skill on the basis of merit and professionalism. We have to enhance the police capacity and capability through training, organizational equipment, and engagement in community outreach. And also we have to be aware in terms of cultural awareness about the structure of the clans, of the sub-clans, the so-called clan affiliation. We have to incorporate certain clans dynamics in the country's social fabric, establish dialogues with clan leaders, and work towards reconciliation. It's very important to work towards reconciliation among the clans' disputes, because there is a remarkable number of clan disputes on the ground, still present. And also to promote a joint police program to improve the coordination among the different international players, among the donors, which, as I showed before, is a big number of countries, international countries involved. We have to reinforce the state Dervish police, which constitute the robust police force of Somalia. There is the federal Dervish police and the state Dervish police, and we have to reinforce and to train and to equip in a proper way the state Dervish police. We have to increase literacy among two Somali police forces. This is another goal to be achieved as the list of recommendations. And also maintain a strong, legitimate and transparent governance among the institutions. This is very important. We have to work on gaining trust we have to work on gaining legitimacy. And this work can be done through proper training, through proper equipment, and also through proper coordination among the different players working on this topic. So this concludes my briefing, and I'm at your disposal for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola, for that, and working group number 3. We appreciate your efforts and the brain power you put into this. We've got several questions. I'll just briefly touch on them. I think some of them you've addressed. The one, I'll say them all. You can address them quickly if you would once I get them out. So the one question is, what is the most important outcome in training? Who is the main actor in the Somali transition plan? And how would you rate the interoperability of security forces in Somalia? If you could give us a quick
Well, in terms
response.
of training, the big lack is that the specific training, the so-called job-specific training, for instance, community-oriented policing training, is lacking. Because according to, for example, the MIADIT training in place, there is a big numbers of specialized courses. There is a big numbers of investigation unit courses, specialistic courses are ongoing. But in terms of training, we should increase the level of community-oriented policing training. If I have to choose one aspect to be increased, I would say community-oriented policing has to be increased for the training question.
And then the main actor in the Somali transition plan, I think.
UCAP.
Yeah.
UCAP is the main actor. UCAP is made up of 50 advisors, which are distributed in 3 different locations in the country. One in Mogadishu and the other 2, one in Somaliland, the other one in Puntland. You know, these advisors, as I said before, they play important role, but the problem is that they play a strategic advising. The level is strategic. That's the point. So they don't go in the community because of security reasons, because of the security constraints which are on the ground. And this is, in my opinion, and also UCAP representatives agree on that, the main challenge, you know, to make a different kind of advising at the very low level. So lower level has to be done.
And then interoperability of security forces, is it working right now?
Well, interoperability among security forces, according to UCAP, is working, also according to EUTM missions, because they are in charge of providing the advising and the training for the military components. According to them, is working, but especially interoperability among the army and the the Federal Dervish Police, because the Federal Dervish Police is the so-called robust police force. There are also 3 FPUs on the ground, according to ATMI's constitution, so they are working, and they work in close cooperation with the Somali army and also with the Federal Dervish Police.
Thanks, Nicola. Oh, we just had another one come in. Hold on a second. Okay, I think we're gonna have to put a bookmark on that. We can study that for maybe a future date. It's a pretty long and complex question. I'm gonna turn to my panel here and see if maybe Colonel Gonsalves might have something to say, because I think, weren't you just in Mogadishu recently? Okay, thank you.
So, Colonel, thank you very much for your excellent presentation. You gave us a clear picture about the situation at the strategic and political level and all the efforts that are been doing since in the beginning of 90s in Somalia regarding the security situation there. So I fully agree with most of all of your findings and recommendations, especially that one that is concerning to the lack of the coordination between the several actors acting on the ground. So there is a lack of coordination, and that is one of the main issues in Somalia. Let me also tell you that as we are here to enhance the Kinoto barracks as a stability policing hub, I would like to tell you that Eurogenfor is contributing for the effort of the training of local Somali police. Last year, we deployed a specialized team to train the Mogadishu Maritime Police Unit. And this week, we are about to deploy the same specialized unit to Somalia to do a second iteration of training. Let me also tell you that we have several assets deployed in Somalia with Eurogenfor Barrett, and as you mentioned before, they are mainly strategic advisors. Because one of the problems in Somalia is also the fact that the security problem of Somalia it has been addressed only or mainly in the capital, and not in the rest of the country. That's why right now UCAP Sahel mission from European Union is more devoted to the strategic level than to the operational or tactical level, because everything is focused on the changing of the mindset and politics of the Somali authorities. But anyway, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Sir, do you have anything?
Yeah, let me congratulate for the outstanding outcomes of your working group and the very informative and thoughtful presentation. There is an aspect that drawn my attention, considering what you said about the poor education of the Somali police officer, which ultimately led to a difficulty in the absorption of the training provided to them. So the recommendation has to be included in the outcomes of the work is to highlight the need for quick impact projects on the developing of soft skills, of very basic police skills that can provide an immediate and visible result, and then also assessing the credibility, improving the credibility and legitimacy of the action and of the Somali police. But I'm very, very concerned about the possibility to solve educational literacy aspects in the short, medium term. This is something that takes a very long term, and the involvement, engagement of other institutions than police.
Absolutely, sir. That's the reason why I said that there must be a comprehensive approach.
Absolutely.
Comprehensive approach, it means clearly that there are many other players that have to be involved in this process. Many other players to improve the scarce level of literacy among the population. So, working together, capacity building, that's the key words. The key words to be highlighted, because this is quite clear that the scarce level of literacy has a strong and negative impact on training. There's no need to make very specialized training when they do not understand what they are talking about, because sometimes these are the real problems of the training teams on the ground. And also another point is that there is no tracking of the training. We have a remarkable number of training because, for instance, in MEADIT missions, they have trained something like 2,100 federal Dervish policemen. 700, I was told, are deployed on the ground, but we don't have a clear picture of where they are, what they are doing, and if they are working on the police skills they have been trained to. So this is another problem to be analyzed in a wide spectrum of the stability policing concept.
Thank you very much. Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, do you have anything?
Just a comment because Somalia is more than 2 times bigger than Italy, while the successful missions we were talking before, Kosovo and Bosnia, I mean, they are, Bosnia is twice the Sicily, and while keeping as point of reference Sicily, Kosovo is less than half of Sicily. So maybe it's much more, it's much easier to work, in a small, not extended environments, but apart from this comment, I'm sure that the issue of Somalia is mainly focused on the scarce of literacy of inhabitants. It's very difficult to train them, and sometimes what I hear from people working in Djibouti, there sometimes we cannot we cannot deny that some of the people trained then moved to the other side with the Al-Shabaab.
Yeah,
With
that's the
weapons
point,
and
sir.
with the equipment given.
With equipment given.
So that's the point. So I think there is a lot to do, and from the international community, much more coordinated efforts on the ground. Much more coordinated efforts.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for that. Nicola, thank you for your work. Working Group 3 from COESPU, appreciate your efforts. Let's give him another round of applause, please. So I'll keep my remarks short because I'll be followed by the director. I want to give him plenty of time, as this is probably not his farewell speech, but the last time he'll address Stability Policing Day as the director of COESPU. So I just want to point out that everybody that was involved in the work today did a great job, and thank you everyone for your hard work and your involvement in today's events. But I think this demonstrates a beginning of some of these issues, and look for ways to help those folks that are deployed in harm's way and enacting some of these things that we have the leisure to talk about and analyze back here. Let's engage with them and see what help they need to analyze some of the tough issues that they're trying to deal with right now. I think that could be a good way forward, and a good thing for the Stability Policing Hub to tackle as we enjoy our time here in Vicenza, Italy. So without further ado, sir, I want to turn the floor over to you to make your final remarks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you the Director of the Center of Excellence for Stability Police Units, Major General Giovanni Pietro Barbano. Please, sir.
Thank you. Carabinieri Deputy Commanding General, Lieutenant General Maurizio De Talmo Mezzavilla, Police Commissioner of Vicenza, Dr. Paolo Sartori, designated head of the 2nd Department of the Carabinieri General Headquarters, Brigadier General Arturo Guarino, thank you for being with us today and for the sensitiveness offered to this event. Eurogen 4 Permanent Headquarters Commander, Colonel Paolo Gonçalves, NATO Stability Policing Center of Excellence Deputy Director, Colonel Murat Munzour, Deputy Head of Mission EULEX Kosovo, Colonel Cesare Luba. Dear colleagues, dear all, dear participants, dear authorities here present, ladies and gentlemen, following the event virtually through our YouTube channel and on our COESPU website. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you for having participated to the third edition of our annual Stability Policing Day. This long, intense, and productive day dedicated to discuss many important stability policing related topics and aspects has finally, I would say, come to an end. This is nevertheless not the conclusion of this endeavor, but just the starting point to further boost the research and the doctrinal development to address the issues and the recommendations raised and discussed during the day and outstandingly presented in the outbriefs of the work group leaders. To this aim, I promise that the outcomes of this Stability Police Day, the proceedings of this endeavor, will be published in a special edition of our journal, the COESPUM magazine Advanced Studies, in order to allow to better spread the contents of this discussion and follow up on it. I would like to express my deepest gratitude for the commitment and professionalism of all the participants of this Stability Policing Day, and in particular to my Deputy Director, U.S. Army Colonel William Daniel, who has masterfully moderated and coordinated all the activities, also acting as scientific coordinator. The Deputy Commander of the Eurogent 4, Colonel François Bortoli, thank you very much, and the Deputy Director of the NATO Stability Policing Center of Excellence, Colonel Murat Muzur, for having contributed inter alia in designing the format and the compelling contents of the discussions we had together today. Indeed, I strongly believe the topics identified are not only notable, useful, and of extreme relevance, but even of paramount importance for the proper implementation of our respective institutional mandates. I also express my gratitude to all the distinguished officers that prepare with professionalism and dedication their lectures, presentations for this morning session, and to the working groups, leaders and panelists for their outstanding contributions. We have heard many fascinating and interesting inputs, and our presenters have shared several stimulating thoughts and recommendations today concerning doctrinal research and training using Kosovo and Somalia as a reference. This Stability Policing Hub can play an essential role for all security professionals as they prepare to deploy to fill the security gap in locations, in harsh locations across the globe. I hope that this reality will encourage us to improve our outstanding trilateral cooperation by sharing the various training events, initiatives, and projects we are promoting. I have greatly appreciated the proactive engagement of all participants. This was key to the success of this event and an attitude reflecting the positive atmospheres of mutual cooperation and collaboration within the Vicenza Stability Policing Hub. Thank you also to the colleagues of the Carabinieri 2nd Mobile Brigade that are present here. You are among the ones regularly called upon to deploy and implement the very concepts, policies, guidance, and procedures that we strive to develop, assisting in this significant international endeavor. Your attendance, therefore, represents a great added value for this symposium, and I encourage you to improve your preparation, your education with your personal effort in future in writing articles, in participating and interacting with the Kosovo Stability, with the Vicenza Stability Policing Hub. Let me underscore my utmost appreciation for the considerable success and the outstanding achievements of this year's Stability Policing Day. To the planners, the logisticians, information technology experts that I salute, they are behind that screen, and staff involved in today's event, and I would like to extend my most sincere thanks because without your efforts, this event would have not been possible. But after so many commendations and congratulations, let also, because otherwise I would not be a good director, to move a small reprimand. I've seen here 3 Carabinieri officers presenting the outcomes of 3 composite working groups. For the next year, please provide that there is also more visibility for all the colleagues belonging to the different contingents that worked within the working groups. I know that you were elected by the working group itself, but provide that there is more integrated approach. Having said that, finally, I encourage the audience to provide us with additional feedbacks and inputs, as I already said before, over the next several days in order to enrich the outputs and to consider how to better address the topics dealt with in the framework of this joint working day. I also extend this challenge to those who followed us virtually, and I'm looking forward to future opportunities to meet with them in person. Thank you very much, and now let's move to our refreshment as a reward for this very intensive day. Thank you.
All the authorities will now leave the room. Please stand.